Cajairah Fraise's disappearance remains a heartbreaking mystery, leaving her family searching for answers. In February 2023, the 23-year-old from Southern California eagerly prepared to welcome her baby boy. With just over a month left until her due date, she was surrounded by the love and support of her family, who were ready to help her raise her child in their Moreno Valley home. As the youngest of 3 siblings, Cajairah shared a close bond with her family and was excited about becoming a mother, even though the pregnancy initially came as a surprise. On February 23, 2023, Cajairah and her mother, Cara, planned a relaxing day together, focusing on easing the physical discomforts of pregnancy and running a few errands to prepare for the baby's arrival. Their day included a visit to the gym for a spa treatment, followed by shopping for baby essentials. Later that evening, Cajairah asked to visit her maternal grandmother's house, and her parents agreed. On the way, they stopped at a Jack in the Box restaurant on Beaumont Avenue to grab a quick meal. As they waited in the drive-thru line, Cajairah sat quietly. Then, in an unexpected and puzzling moment, she suddenly opened the car door, clutching her Bible, and stepped out. She told her parents she needed fresh air, then walked toward the front of the restaurant's drive-thru area. Concerned, her parents quickly completed their order and drove around to look for her, but she was gone. They searched the parking lot, checked inside the restaurant, and called out for her, but there was no sign of their daughter. At 10:39 p.m., realizing the gravity of the situation, they called the police to report her missing. Cajairah left behind her purse and possibly her phone, taking only her Bible. Her mother later explained that Cajairah's phone had already been misplaced before she disappeared. However, a strange inconsistency later surfaced. An advocate for the case, Sarah Huebner, pointed out that the missing persons flyer included a photo of Cajairah taken on the night she vanished. The image had been taken with her phone, raising questions about how it was obtained. The investigation into Cajairah's disappearance faced significant setbacks due to delays in accessing surveillance footage. By the time authorities attempted to review security recordings from Jack in the Box and nearby businesses, nearly a month had passed, and the footage had already been erased. The only available video came from a local high school security cameras, which showed Cajairah walking south across the parking lot, away from the restaurant. She was last seen wearing grey sweatpants, a black hooded sweatshirt, a black shawl, and black slip-on shoes. The search for Cajairah was extensive. Investigators scoured the area on foot and deployed helicopters, drones, planes, and search dogs to cover as much ground as possible. They reached out to hospitals, hoping she might have been admitted to give birth, and contacted shelters and mental health facilities across Riverside County, San Bernardino County, and even Nevada. However, despite their exhaustive efforts, no leads have emerged, and her whereabouts remain unknown. Her family has speculated about what may have led to her sudden departure that night. Her mother believes Cajairah may have been experiencing a mental health crisis, making her vulnerable. She remains hopeful that her daughter and grandchild are alive, possibly being cared for by someone unaware that she is missing. Authorities, however, have stated that there is no concrete evidence to suggest foul play, or that Cajairah was taken against her will. Still, many questions remain unanswered. What triggered her sudden decision to leave the car? Why was the surveillance footage not reviewed sooner, potentially erasing crucial clues? More than a year has passed since Cajairah Fraise disappeared into the night, and her family continues their search for answers. Despite the lack of new developments, they hold on to hope that someone, somewhere, knows what happened and will come forward with information. Until then, the mystery of Cajairah Fraise's disappearance remains unresolved. The disappearance of Laura Huebner remains one of the most perplexing missing person cases in recent Canadian history. At the time she vanished, Laura was 45 years old and living in Nanaimo, British Columbia. Originally from Calgary, Alberta, she had been struggling with significant personal challenges, including the recent loss of her mother just months earlier. Juggling 3 different jobs, Laura was exhausted and decided to take a break by traveling to Victoria. Laura was deeply passionate about her work in costume design, and those who knew her well described her as dedicated and hard-working. One of her closest friends, Danica Wright, who had known her for over 20 years, recalled that Laura had been looking forward to returning to work on a movie project that summer. To Danica, this was clear proof that Laura had no intention of disappearing. She had concrete plans for the future, making her sudden vanishing all the more mysterious. She was last seen on April 24, 2023, when she arrived at Victoria International Airport from Regina, Saskatchewan. Initially, reports suggested she was traveling to Nanaimo to visit friends, but it was later revealed that she had arranged to meet a man she'd connected with online. Her father, Harry Huebner, disclosed that she had booked a return flight home for April 28th, but she never boarded the plane. During her stay, Laura sent her father a photograph on April 25th, showing her aboard a sailboat. According to friends, the man she had gone to meet had invited her on a date on his boat. After she was reported missing, her father shared the photo online in an attempt to identify the vessel and gather any information about the person she had met. Then, on May 2nd, a boat matching the one in Laura's photo was spotted, docked near a Royal Canadian Mounted Police (RCMP) vessel in Nanaimo. It had reportedly been towed away, but despite this major development, the RCMP declined to confirm whether the sailboat was connected to Laura's disappearance. The only statement they provided was that they believed she had been in the Nanaimo area as of April 24th. No further details were released. This lack of transparency left Laura's family and friends feeling frustrated and desperate for answers. Her disappearance was especially concerning because it was completely out of character. Laura was known to be close with her family, and given the recent loss of her mother, it seemed unlikely that she would voluntarily cut off contact. The fact that she had a scheduled return flight and career plans only strengthened the belief that she did not intentionally vanish. As the investigation progressed, speculation grew around the man she had gone to meet. Given the timing and circumstances of her disappearance, authorities considered the possibility that he may have been involved, though no official suspects were named. Without further evidence, the case remained at a standstill, leaving her loved ones with more questions than answers. Laura Huebner's disappearance serves as a haunting reminder of the risks involved in meeting strangers online. It also highlights the challenges law enforcement faces in missing person cases, particularly when key evidence, such as surveillance footage or eyewitness accounts, is lacking. To this day, no trace of Laura has been found. Her family and friends continue to hope that new information will surface, bringing them closer to the truth. Until then, her case remains an open and painful mystery. Claudia Lawrence, a chef at the University of York, vanished without a trace on March 18, 2009, leaving behind one of the most perplexing missing persons cases in recent British history. Despite extensive police investigations, widespread media coverage, and significant public interest, no definitive answers have emerged about what happened to her. The case has generated multiple theories, yet no confirmed conclusions. Claudia's last known movements began when she finished work at 2:30 p.m. on March 18th. A friend saw her walking home and offered her a lift, dropping her off at her cottage on Heworth Road at approximately 3 p.m. 2:50 p.m. She was later seen posting a letter before returning home around 3 p.m. That evening, at approximately 8 p.m., she exchanged text messages with a friend and spoke to her mother on the phone. Her mother later recalled that Claudia sounded cheerful and relaxed. This conversation would be the last confirmed contact anyone had with her. The following morning, Claudia failed to show up for work. Her manager attempted to call her, but received no answer. At the time, her phone was still turned on, only to be deliberately switched off at 8:12 a.m. that same day. She was also supposed to meet her close friend Susie Cooper that evening, but never arrived. Concerned by her absence, Cooper contacted Claudia's father, who then entered her home. Inside, there were no immediate signs of a struggle, but 3 key items were missing: her rucksack, mobile phone, and work uniform. These missing belongings suggested that Claudia had left for work that morning as usual. However, her unexplained absence and the sudden silence from her phone raised immediate concerns. Police launched an investigation that led to 2 reported sightings of Claudia. The first came from a cyclist who claimed to have seen a woman resembling her talking to a man at 5:35 a.m. on March 19th at Melrose Gate, a location along her usual route to work. The second sighting, reported 30 minutes later, described a couple appearing to argue near the University of York, where she worked. In addition, police obtained CCTV footage showing a suspicious man at the back of Claudia's house. On the night of March 18th and the early morning of March 19th, the man, described as wearing a black hoodie, matched descriptions given by witnesses from the reported sightings. However, despite extensive efforts, this individual has never been identified. Only 5 weeks into the investigation, police officially classified the case as a suspected murder, though no body or concrete evidence was found to confirm Claudia's fate. Over the years, North Yorkshire Police collected thousands of witness statements and conducted numerous searches, but the case remained unsolved. In 2013, a newly established unit dedicated to cold cases re-examined the evidence using advanced forensic techniques. This led to the discovery of new fingerprints and an unidentified man's DNA on a cigarette butt found in Claudia's car. 6 men were arrested in connection with the case, but all were later released without charge. With no resolution, 2 main theories have dominated discussions about what happened to Claudia. One theory suggests that she may have deliberately disappeared. Claudia had taken multiple trips to Cyprus before her disappearance, and the last text message on her phone came from a male friend in Cyprus. Some speculated that she might have chosen to leave the UK and start a new life there. However, when police extended their investigation to Cyprus, they found no evidence that she had travelled there after March 2009. The second and more widely accepted theory is that Claudia was taken and silenced. In a Crime Watch episode focused on her case, Detective Superintendent Ray Galloway revealed that Claudia had complex personal relationships, some of which were unknown to her family and friends. Rumours surfaced that she had been romantically involved with married men, leading to speculation that she may have been harmed by a jealous or vengeful lover. Supporting this theory, police interviewed all male patrons of a particular pub in York to determine if any had been involved with Claudia. Despite these efforts, no solid leads emerged. Some have also linked her disappearance to convicted criminal Christopher Halliwell, who was found guilty of abducting and murdering 2 women. Halliwell's second known victim disappeared exactly 2 years to the day after Claudia, leading some criminologists to suggest a pattern in his crimes. Additionally, there was at least 1 reported sighting of Claudia and Halliwell together, further fueling speculation. Claudia's mother has been particularly vocal in urging the police to investigate Halliwell as a suspect, believing he may be responsible for her daughter's disappearance. However, law enforcement has not been able to confirm any direct connection between Hallowell and Claudia's case. More than a decade later, the disappearance of Claudia Lawrence remains unsolved. Despite continued efforts from her family, the police, and the public, no definitive answers have been found. Her case highlights the challenges of solving long-term missing persons investigations and the devastating impact these cases have on families left without closure. The mystery of what happened to Claudia continues to haunt those who knew her, and until new evidence emerges, her fate remains unknown. The disappearance of Noemi Gonzalez in 2014 remains an incredibly puzzling case, one that has not received the attention it truly deserves. At the time, Noemi was 54 years old and deeply connected to her community. She was the youngest of 12 siblings and remained close to her family, frequently calling them just to chat. Her brother lived right next door, in the other half of the duplex they shared, and she was described as a pillar of the neighborhood. Before retiring due to a workplace injury, Noemi had worked as a receptionist at the local police station and as a crossing guard. Even after retirement, she remained active, teaching Sunday school and tutoring children. She was well known and well loved, making her sudden and unexplained disappearance all the more shocking. On the evening of February 11th, 2014, Noemi made several phone calls, none of which seemed out of the ordinary. She spoke with one of her siblings, checked in on a child she tutored, and later called her grandson to wish him good night. At the time, Noemi's son, Pedrito, was living with her following a breakup with his girlfriend. According to him, she went to bed between 10 p.m. and 10:30 p.m., as was her usual routine. Around 2 a.m., Pedrito briefly woke up to use the bathroom and noticed that his mother was still in bed. However, by the time he got up for the day at 8 a.m., Noemi was gone. Noemi was an early riser, so at first, her absence didn't seem unusual. But as Pedrito began moving through the house, he noticed several things that immediately raised concern. Her bed, which she always made in the morning, was still unmade. The coffee pot, which she used to prepare her morning coffee, sat untouched. Even more unsettling, all of her personal belongings, her phone, purse, and house keys, had been left behind. Realizing something was wrong, Pedrito went next door to ask his uncle if he had seen or heard from Noemi, but he hadn't. After calling other family members to check if she had gone to visit them, it became clear Noemi was missing. The police took her disappearance seriously from the very beginning. Noemi had never gone missing before, and there was no logical explanation for why she would suddenly vanish. Law enforcement described her as being like family to them, and they were determined to solve the case. Search teams, including tracking dogs and divers, scoured the surrounding areas, including local canals, but found no trace of her. During their investigation, police discovered what appeared to be traces of blood in Noemi's bedroom. However, after forensic analysis, it was determined that the substance was not human blood. There were also no signs of forced entry or a struggle, and neither Pedrito nor Noemi's brother had heard anything unusual that night. One of the biggest concerns for Noemi's family was that she had left without her medication. She suffered from epilepsy and cardiogenic syndrome, a heart condition that can cause fainting spells. She needed daily medication to manage her health, and the longer she remained missing, the greater the risk to her well-being. To find answers, Noemi's family and friends raised a $20,000 reward for information. Despite their efforts, no credible leads have emerged. Several theories have been proposed about what might have happened to Noemi. One possibility is that she suffered a seizure during the night, became disoriented, and wandered out of the house in a confused state. If that were the case, she may have unknowingly walked into one of the nearby waterways or encountered someone who took advantage of her vulnerable condition. Another theory suggests foul play, although there were no immediate signs of a struggle at her home. If someone had harmed her, they would have needed a way to remove her from the house without waking her son or brother, which seems unlikely. Pedrito was the last known person to see Noemi, but there is no evidence to suggest he was involved in her disappearance, and he has never been considered a suspect by police. At the time she went missing, Noemi Gonzalez was 5 feet 1 inch, weighed 160 pounds, and had grey hair and brown eyes. She also had noticeable birthmarks on her face and arm. Anyone with information about her case is urged to contact the North Miami Police Department at 305-4718-477. Nearly a decade later, Noemi's case remains a mystery, leaving her family desperate for answers and a community still searching for one of their own. The disappearance of 40-year-old Amber Manthorne took place on the 7th of July, 2022, and, at first, investigators were baffled and asked for the public's assistance in the case. But it's since come to light that someone close to her may have been responsible. Amber hails from Port Alberni, Vancouver Island, one of the country's largest islands. Her older sister Shannon describes her as a fun-loving and spirited person who keeps everyone on their toes. When she was a child, she added that Amber was someone who worked hard, made sure to look after herself, and had a lot to look forward to in her life. She decided to possibly get married and have children one day, something that did not appeal to her in the past. She was well known and liked in her community, and her family states that people still come up to them on the streets often to ask if there have been any developments in her case, despite it being more than 2 years old. It's unclear who reported Amber missing, but sources state that this was done on the 8th of July, 2022, after she'd not been seen or heard from for more than 24 hours. That's when the Royal Canadian Mounted Police appealed to the public to be on the lookout for her while they started their investigation. The following day, her family became even more concerned for her well-being when her car, a white 2021 Jeep Compass, was found abandoned just south of Nanaimo, and the case was handed over to the Vancouver Island Integrated Major Crime Unit. Following this, Amber's family, friends and volunteers from the community started a search in the backcountry areas between Port Alberni and Nanaimo, where her Jeep was found. The search lasted for weeks, but no further clues were found. During interviews with those close to her, it was revealed that she was likely in the company of her boyfriend, Justin Hall, and that he was likely the last one to see her before she vanished. But when investigators spoke to him, he stated that he hadn't seen her that day and that he had no idea what may have happened to her. Unfortunately, Justin passed away shortly before the first anniversary of Amber's disappearance, though it's not been revealed how he lost his life. This means that any information he may have had on the case is now forever lost. Investigators have since asked that anyone who was close to Justin and who may have information on the case come forward, since he's now considered to be the #1 suspect in her disappearance thanks to further leads that were uncovered during the investigation. This includes some very suspicious activity that was captured by CCTV security cameras. The footage was obtained from a Husky gas station on 3rd Avenue and has since been released to the public in case they have more information on what is seen in the video. It shows Amber's Jeep arriving at the gas station, but when the driver steps out, it's Justin, not Amber. He's then seen opening the driver's side back door and removing a large blue suitcase from the back seat. He takes it to the back of the car, opens the trunk, and attempts to put it in the trunk. But as is seen in the footage, he's unable to fit it due to a large plastic tote that's already in the trunk, and after many unsuccessful attempts, he's forced to return the suitcase to the back seat. Neither the plastic tote nor the suitcase have ever been found, and it's unclear whether they'll shed light on anything in the case. But investigators feel strongly that they will. They believe there is foul play involved and that Justin knew what had happened to her. They've since released a timeline in the case, starting on the 7th of July, when Amber was captured on security footage at 3:27 p.m. inside of a BYOW Foods in Port Alberni. She made a few purchases at the store and was then seen leaving in her car. Her Jeep was seen again driving west on Pacific Rim Highway at 3:35 p.m. and shortly after, she arrived at her house and she was never seen again. The next day, at 12:22 a.m., Justin made a call to United Cabs, where he ordered a taxi. The cab was seen heading in a westerly direction. Keep in mind that this was just after midnight. About 4 hours later, at 4:17 a.m., Amber's car is seen driving on the Pacific Rim Highway, headed in the direction of Port Alberni. Following this, he traveled to the gas station, where he was seen trying to rearrange the luggage that he had in the vehicle. The Jeep is then seen once again at a McDonald's restaurant on Johnston Road, where Justin buys some food at 7:02 a.m. An hour later, Amber's colleagues realized that she didn't show up for work, and at 9:22 a.m., Justin was seen buying items at a Walmart in Nanaimo. This was about 4.5 hours after he was captured by cameras at the gas station. His suspicious behavior continued after this, as he was planning on traveling to the mainland in Amber's Jeep without informing anyone. It's known that he purchased a ferry ticket at the Duke Point terminal, after which he fell in behind the other cars that were waiting to be loaded. But then, he seemingly had second thoughts, as he could be seen leaving the queue just after 11 a.m., never getting on the ferry and driving away. The next day, investigators were informed that the Jeep had been found, but that Amber was nowhere to be seen. Searches were conducted in the areas surrounding the car, but nothing further was found. Investigators stated that they believed Amber owned a phone case that held several bank and credit cards and had asked the public to be on the lookout for it since it was never found. Justin's cell phone was also never recovered. Strangely, Amber's phone pinged off several towers in the Alberni Valley area for days after she disappeared, and it may be a vital clue in the case. The authorities have since revealed that they believe Amber is no longer alive, and that she likely met with foul play, possibly at the hands of her boyfriend. But since he can't be interviewed, this remains speculation. Investigators have asked that anyone with information on the case contact the Port Alberni RCMP at 250-723-2424, quoting police file number 2022-6674. Alternatively, you can contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. In February of 2023, 37-year-old Nicholas Downey from Gulfport, Mississippi, decided to take some time off work to visit his wife Holly, who was staying at a rehabilitation center in Mississippi. At the time, Nicholas was working in Bradenton, Florida. He was also a father to 2 teenage children, a son and a daughter, who lived primarily with their mother in Kentucky. To make the trip to see Holly, Nicholas would need to spend about 4 days on the road. To do so, he decided to rent a Tesla. After visiting Holly, he began the long drive back to Florida. Along the way, he noticed that the Tesla's battery was running low, so he pulled over behind a McDonald's restaurant in Marianna, Florida, to charge the car. CCTV footage from a nearby area captured a Tesla pulling into the charging station. A person, believed to be Nicholas, got out to plug the car in, then got back inside and drove away. However, instead of getting onto the interstate, as he had planned, the driver turned onto State Road 71, heading in the opposite direction. The owner of the rental car, who was tracking Nicholas's journey via a mobile app, noticed the unexpected route change. Concerned, he sent Nicholas a message which would have appeared on the car's dashboard. The message read, "Hello, are you making your way here? I see you driving in the opposite direction with no charges nearby. I hope everything is okay." However, Nicholas never responded. He was scheduled to work a shift on February 27th, but he never showed up. No one had heard from him since he left Mississippi. On March 3rd, after several days of silence, a missing persons report was officially filed in Gulfport. The next day, authorities received reports of an abandoned Tesla found between Turkey Creek Road and Prison Road in Liberty County. The car had damage to its windshield, which appeared to have been caused when it was driven under a cable suspended over an access road. The vehicle was located about 1.5 miles from the cable. Though the Tesla's battery was nearly depleted, it still had enough charge to continue driving for a short distance. Yet, for some unknown reason, it had been abandoned. The owner of the rental car remotely unlocked the vehicle for investigators. Inside, they found Nicholas's extra clothes, a drone he used for work, a McDonald's receipt, and 2 cell phones. One of the phones belonged to Holly. Nicholas had been holding onto it for her, since patients at the rehab center were not allowed to keep their phones. Holly was completely unaware of her husband's disappearance. She only found out when she was finally allowed to make a phone call to him on Monday morning, only for a deputy to answer instead. Investigators were puzzled. There were no footprints around the abandoned Tesla, suggesting that Nicholas had not simply walked away. A large-scale search was conducted, both on foot and from the air using helicopters, but no trace of him was found. Many aspects of this case remain unexplained. Some believe that Nicholas may not have been alone when he left McDonald's that night, but this remains only speculation. Nicholas Downey is still missing. He has brown hair, hazel eyes, and a distinctive tattoo of an anatomically correct heart on his chest. Unfortunately, authorities do not know what he was wearing when he was last seen. If you have any information about Nicholas's whereabouts, please contact the Liberty County Sheriff's Department at 850-643-2235. Even the smallest lead could help bring answers to his family. 70-year-old David Moffett, a resident of Center Township, Michigan, mysteriously vanished on September 29, 2023. However, this wasn't the first time he had gone missing. David suffers from Alzheimer's disease, which makes him prone to confusion and disorientation. Just 2 weeks before his disappearance, he had wandered away from home and was missing for nearly 13 hours. When authorities finally located him, they discovered that he had been asking strangers for a ride to Rogers City, a place where he had no known connections. Even more puzzling, he told some people that he lived in Petoskey, despite never having lived there. His family believed that he had likely forgotten to take his Alzheimer's medication, which may have caused him to become even more disoriented. That incident ended with him being found safely, but when he disappeared for the second time, the outcome was far different. To this day, David has not been found. On the morning of September 29th, at approximately 10 a.m., David left his home to take his dog, Stella, for a walk. Unfortunately, he did not bring his cell phone, which could have helped track his movements. His wallet and ID were later found inside his house, meaning he had left without any form of identification or money. When he still hadn't returned home by 3:30 p.m., his family grew increasingly worried and reported him missing. Given his medical condition and the fact that he did not have his medication with him, there were serious concerns for his safety. A friend of David later reported seeing him walking along Levering Road and Larks Lake Road at approximately 4:30 a.m. that day. However, that was the last confirmed sighting of him. Days passed with no sign of David, but then something unexpected happened. Stella, his dog, returned home, alone. She had been missing for almost a week, and while she appeared weak and tired, she was otherwise unharmed. After being fed and allowed to rest, Stella led investigators to a location beneath a set of power transmission lines. It was there that they found her footprints, giving them some idea of the route she and David had taken before he disappeared. Hoping to find more clues, search teams, including over 100 volunteers and search dogs, scoured the area thoroughly. Unfortunately, despite their best efforts, no sign of David was ever found. Eventually, the active search was called off, and the investigation became a clue-based effort, relying on any new leads that might emerge. However, no further evidence has surfaced, leaving his disappearance a mystery. David is described as having white hair and brown eyes. He is 5 feet 9 inches tall and weighs approximately 135 pounds. At the time he went missing, he was wearing a green sweater, brown pants, a checkered shirt, and a baseball hat. David's family and loved ones are desperate for answers. They urge anyone who may have seen him or has any information about his whereabouts to contact the Emmett County Sheriff's Office at 2314-399-8900. David's case number is MP109915. Any leads, no matter how small, could make a difference in finding him. Joan Webster's disappearance is one of the most mysterious and confusing events in Massachusetts history. A bright and ambitious architecture student at Harvard University, Joan had just returned to Boston after spending Thanksgiving weekend with her family in Glen Ridge, New Jersey. On November 28, 1981, she boarded a flight from Newark to Logan International Airport. That was the last time her family would see her alive. When Joan arrived in Boston, she was seen at the baggage carousel, but what happened after that remains unclear. 3 days later, authorities officially listed her as missing. Almost immediately, evidence of foul play began to surface. Her purse and wallet were discovered in a marsh in Saugus, Massachusetts, a troubling sign that she may have met with danger. Even more disturbing was the discovery of her suitcase in a Boston bus station locker. These findings suggested that someone had deliberately removed and disposed of her belongings, reinforcing the growing belief that Joan had been taken. As the investigation continued, law enforcement officials pursued multiple leads, but none brought them any closer to finding Joan. In February 1983, a breakthrough seemed imminent when a prison inmate came forward with information. He claimed that Joan had been struck over the head. While this was a chilling revelation, it did not immediately lead to the recovery of her remains or the apprehension of her perpetrator. For nearly a decade, Joan's fate remained unknown. The media covered her disappearance extensively, and the case remained in the public eye. There were theories and speculations that she had been taken by a serial offender, or that she had fallen victim to an opportunistic crime. Despite the high visibility of her case, no one seemed to have definitive answers. Finally, in April 1990, nearly 9 years after Joan vanished, her remains were found in a shallow grave in a wooded area of Hamilton, Massachusetts. The discovery was grim. Joan's skull bore evidence of trauma inflicted by a blunt instrument, confirming that she had been attacked. However, even with this crucial piece of evidence, the identity of her perpetrator remained unknown. The revelation of her remains reignited interest in the case, but despite renewed investigative efforts, authorities were unable to close it. The Suffolk District Attorney's Office, along with various law enforcement agencies, struggled to piece together what had truly happened to Joan Webster. The details of her final moments remained shrouded in mystery, and those responsible for her death evaded justice. More than 3 decades later, Joan's case continues to be the subject of speculation and debate. The inconsistencies in the official explanations have led many to believe that critical information has either been overlooked or intentionally concealed. Some researchers and journalists continue to analyze the case, hoping to uncover new leads or expose mistakes in the original investigation. Her family has never stopped seeking answers, longing for closure that has remained elusive. The uncertainty surrounding her final hours only deepens the tragedy of her story. Joan Webster was a promising young woman with a bright future, and her life was cruelly cut short by an unknown assailant. The case remains open, with investigators still hoping for new evidence to surface. Advances in forensic technology have solved many cold cases in recent years, and perhaps, one day, new techniques will provide long-awaited answers. about what truly happened to Joan Webster. Her case remains an unsettling mystery until then, a haunting reminder of how quickly a life can be stolen and how some crimes continue to defy resolution. On the afternoon of January 20th, 1996, shortly after 3:30 p.m., 3 girls were walking together in Santana, a neighborhood in the northern part of Varginha, Brazil. Sisters Lilian and Valkyria da Silva, aged 16 and 14 respectively, along with 22-year-old Katia Xavier, arrived at an unoccupied, barren area of land where they encountered something extraordinary. Against the wall of an abandoned cinder-block structure, a strange, demon-like entity stood motionless. Its skin had a leathery brown hue, and it appeared to have a triangular-shaped head with large, glowing red eyes. Its limbs seemed disproportionately short compared to its torso, and its estimated height was around 2.5 feet. Frozen in place, unable to look away, the girls later recalled that the creature appeared just as terrified as they were. It hunched lower against the wall, as if trying to avoid their gaze. After a brief moment, the 3 girls turned and ran at full speed toward the main road. They didn't stop until they reached the sisters' home. It took them nearly 20 minutes to calm down enough to explain what they had seen. Katia, along with the girls' mother and a neighbor, decided to return to the site to investigate. When they arrived, the creature was gone. However, an indentation remained in the grass where it had been crouching, and a strong, pungent odor, resembling ammonia, lingered in the air. This strange smell has been noted in other close contact encounters with unidentified beings. While they didn't see the creature again, someone else had. An elderly widow and her granddaughter, who had heard the girls' terrified screams earlier, arrived at the scene after the 3 girls had already left. Hiding nearby, they observed what happened next. According to their testimony, a vehicle from the municipal fire department arrived, and the firefighters swiftly captured the being before leaving, as though nothing unusual had happened. The incident quickly gained the attention of the media and UFO investigators. Ubirajara Franco Rodrigues, one of Brazil's most well-respected UFO researchers, conducted an in-depth investigation. He firmly believed the girls were telling the truth and worked to find additional witnesses. One such witness, a bricklayer named Enrique José de Sousa, claimed to have seen a fire department vehicle at the site of the sighting. Interestingly, his observation occurred before the 3 girls had their encounter, raising questions about whether authorities were already tracking the creature. Another compelling testimony came from a local resident, Aurelina Augusta. She reported being woken up just after 1 a.m. on January 20th by the sound of distressed animals from a nearby farm. Curious, she went to her window and saw cattle running in panic. Then she noticed the cause of their fear, a luminous, submarine-shaped object hovering above them. Aurelina immediately woke her husband, and the two watched as the craft emitted grey smoke from one side, moving erratically as if damaged. It became clear that the vessel was malfunctioning. In Brazil, the fire service operates under the jurisdiction of the military police, making the reports of firefighters capturing the creature even more intriguing. Official records from the Varginha City Fire Department confirm that, at 8:30 a.m. on January 20th, an emergency call was received, reporting an unusual creature moving through the woods on the outskirts of the city, near the area where the girls would later see it. When firefighters arrived at the scene, they encountered 3 young boys who claimed they had seen the creature heading in a specific direction. 2 other adults, a man and a woman, corroborated the boys' account. The woman stated that the boys had been throwing stones at the entity until she told them to stop. It then disappeared into the forest. A small search unit was dispatched into the woods, but at first, they only caught occasional glimpses of movement. Then, 2 hours later, according to Rodriguez, they successfully cornered the being and captured it. Strangely, it offered no resistance, possibly because it was injured. Later that same day, 3 creatures were reportedly captured, including the one seen by the 3 girls. A severe storm interrupted the search for several hours, but by 6 p.m., search units resumed their mission. That evening, 2 plainclothes officers, reportedly working for an unknown agency, tracked down and captured a 4th entity. Unlike the previous teams, these officers did not use any specialized equipment. Instead, they physically restrained the being and forced it into their vehicle. One of these officers, identified as Marco Ili Cherez, had directly handled the creature with his bare hands. Shortly afterward, he developed a severe illness, experiencing total organ failure. Despite medical interventions, his condition rapidly worsened, and he passed away on February 15th. The circumstances surrounding his death were deeply unsettling. The hospital refused to provide any details about his condition, ordered his coffin to be sealed, and insisted that his funeral take place within hours. Cherez's family pursued legal action against the Brazilian military, but the only information they uncovered was the presence of an unknown toxic substance in his body. More suspiciously, official documents had been altered to state that Cherez had been off duty on the night in question. Rodriguez's investigation uncovered even more disturbing details. In the days following the incident, an entire wing of the city's hospital was sealed off, and military officials gathered the hospital staff, instructing them to remain silent. They were told that the past few days had been nothing more than a training exercise for medical and military personnel. Additionally, witnesses recalled seeing 3 large military trucks stationed outside the hospital on January 22nd. At that point, reports suggest that at least one of the captured entities was still alive. By 4 a.m. on January 23rd, a military convoy, led by a yellow Volkswagen van, departed from Virginia. Its destination remains unknown. Some sources claim that an autopsy of the captured beings was conducted by Dr. Fortunato Badan Palhares, one of Brazil's most esteemed forensic specialists. Palhares denied this claim. However, years later, when a student privately questioned him about the alleged autopsy, Palhares reportedly replied, "Ask me again in 10 to 15 years. Further investigation revealed that at least one US official was present in Virginia between January 20th and January 23rd. This revelation coincides with a report from NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command, which had detected several unidentified flying objects over the Western Hemisphere on January 13th, 1996. That night, at least one of these objects entered Brazilian airspace. The possibility that a UFO crashed near Virginia remains a topic of debate, but one account seems to confirm it. Truck driver Carlos de Souza was traveling along the Fernão Dias Highway in the early hours of January 13th, less than 5 miles from Virginia, when he suddenly heard a low, rumbling sound overhead. Looking up, he saw a cigar-shaped silver craft moving at a slow speed, around 50 miles per hour. He observed 4 windows along the side of the object, which he estimated to be about 40 feet long. A jagged break at the front of the craft was emitting thick white smoke, suggesting it was badly damaged. For 10 minutes, Souza followed the object, watching as it descended beyond the treetops. He was certain it had crashed. Minutes later, as he approached the site, he saw military personnel already on the scene, collecting scattered debris and loading it onto trucks. A large silver fragment lay nearby. Souza picked it up, but before he could leave, a soldier ordered him to leave immediately. A short time later, as he stopped for coffee at a roadside cafe, two men in civilian clothing approached him. They knew his name and warned him not to speak about what he had seen. Though there is no definitive proof of Sousa's claims, his story aligns with information that was not publicly available at the time. While skeptics dismiss the Virginia incident as an elaborate hoax, the details suggest a far more complex reality, one that may have been deliberately concealed